stared at the official document in his hands, reading it for the fifth time. The words hadn't changed, but they still didn't make sense. According to the Galactic Council's legal department, he had just inherited something from Emperor of the Empire. The same empire humanity had been at war with for 3 years. The same emperor whose forces had fought against on 6 different worlds. "This has to be some kind of joke," he muttered, setting the document on his kitchen table. His small apartment on Earth's Luna colony felt even more cramped than usual. The artificial gravity never quite felt right after spending months in the trenches of real planets. A soft chime from his door interrupted his thoughts. Grabbed his sidearm out of habit before remembering he was home now, not in a war zone. He opened the door to find a tall, elegant alien in flowing robes. The being had blue-tinted skin and 4 arms, marking them as a diplomat. The diplomat asked in perfect English, "Yeah, that's me. I am Ambassador Al. I believe you received our communication regarding your inheritance." Stepped aside to let the ambassador in. "I got something, but I think there's been a mistake. I never knew any emperor personally. I was just a grunt who followed orders." Al's large eyes seemed to shimmer with something that might have been amusement. "There has been no mistake, Sergeant. The Emperor was very specific in his final instructions. You are to inherit his most precious companion." "Companion?" Before the ambassador could answer, a low rumble came from the hallway outside. Peered past Al and nearly jumped back. A massive creature sat in the corridor, easily the size of a small horse but built like a wolf. Its fur was deep black with silver markings that seemed to glow softly. Most unsettling of all were its eyes, bright blue and clearly intelligent. "What in the 7 hells is that?" asked. "That," Al said with what was learning to recognize as pride, "is a shadow wolf and the late Emperor's closest friend." The wolf tilted its massive head and spoke in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder. "You must be the human who killed my bonded one." His hand instinctively moved toward his weapon before he caught himself. "It talks." "Of course I talk, human. I am not some mindless beast." Stood and padded into the apartment, forcing to step back. The wolf was even more imposing up close. "Though I suppose your species has trouble distinguishing intelligence from their own primitive understanding." "Hey now," said, his military training kicking in. He'd dealt with hostile aliens before, even if none of them had been in his living room. "I don't know what your deal is, but you can't just waltz into my home and start throwing insults around." The wolf's ears perked up slightly. Interesting, most humans would have cowered or tried to flee by now. Ambassador Al cleared their throat with a sound like wind chimes. "Perhaps I should explain the situation more clearly. Emperor died in the Battle of Station 3 months ago." Nodded grimly. He remembered that battle. It had been the turning point of the war when human forces finally managed to break the siege of the outer colonies. The Emperor had died when his flagship was destroyed, though hadn't known the details. "What you may not know," Al continued, "is that before his death, the Emperor spent considerable time studying human military records. He was particularly interested in individual acts of courage and honor during the conflict." "I still don't see what this has to do with me," said, though a cold feeling was growing in his stomach. Padded closer, his massive paws silent on the apartment's metal floor. "You saved a group of civilians on VII, non-combatants who were trapped when your forces took the mining station." Felt his mouth go dry. That incident was classified, few people knew about it, and he'd assumed even fewer cared. "How did you?" "My bonded one had access to all military communications," said. "He saw the recordings. He watched you disobey your orders to evacuate those families instead of leaving them to die in the collapse." "I just did what anyone would do," said quietly. "No," the wolf's voice carried a strange note of respect. "You did what a being of honor would do. The Emperor was impressed that a human soldier would risk court-martial to save enemy civilians." Ambassador Al nodded approvingly. Emperor believed that such honor should be recognized, even across species lines. In his final will, he left in your care. He believed that a warrior who would protect the innocent, even his enemies, would be worthy of his oldest friend's trust. Looked between the alien diplomat and the massive wolf. This whole situation felt surreal. "Okay, but I never asked for this. I just want to finish my service and maybe find a quiet job somewhere. I can't take care of some alien wolf." His blue eyes seemed to bore into him. The Emperor also predicted you would say something like that. Oh, did he now? He left specific instructions, Al said, producing another document. If you refuse the inheritance, will be euthanized according to tradition. Shadow wolves cannot survive long without a bonded companion, and the Emperor's family has already declared they want nothing to do with his pet. Felt anger flare in his chest. That's emotional blackmail. That's reality, said calmly. I am not asking for your pity, human, merely stating facts. Without a bond, my kind dies within a few months. It is our nature. What exactly would this bonding involve? Asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. I would become your companion, explained. We would share a mental link, allowing communication across distances and some degree of emotional connection. I would be loyal to you as I was to, and you would be responsible for my. And if I say no, you die. Correct. Ran a hand through his short-cropped hair. This was not how he'd planned to spend his leave time. Give me a minute to think. He walked to his small kitchen and stared out the porthole at the Luna City sprawl below. Ships came and went constantly, carrying soldiers, supplies, and civilians between Earth and the outer colonies. The war was officially over now, but tensions remained high. Plenty of humans still saw all aliens as potential enemies. Taking in an alien companion, especially one from the enemy empire, would not make him popular with his neighbors, or his commanding officers for that matter. On the other hand, he'd seen enough death during the war. The thought of this intelligent creature dying just because he was too scared to deal with the social complications made his stomach turn. All right, he called back to the living room. Say I agree to this. What happens next? Ambassador Al consulted another document. The bonding ceremony is quite simple. You would need to place your hand on his forehead while speaking the traditional words. The mental link forms naturally after that. And then you're stuck with me, said to the wolf. Are you sure you want to bond with someone who fought against your empire? Tilted his massive head thoughtfully. You show more consideration for my feelings than the Emperor's own sons did. They saw me as a tool, something to be used for their political games. You at least ask my opinion. So what is your opinion? I believe the Emperor chose well. You have honor, even if your species as a whole is still primitive and violent. I would rather bond with an honorable human than die slowly from separation sickness. Couldn't help but smile slightly at the backhanded compliment. Gee, thanks. You really know how to make a guy feel special. For the first time, his expression seemed to shift into what might have been amusement. I am still learning human sarcasm. Was that an example? Yeah, that was sarcasm. Interesting, the Emperor rarely used humor in such a manner. This may prove educational. Ambassador Al stepped forward. If you are both agreeable, we should proceed with the ceremony. I have other diplomatic duties to attend to today. Looked at the wolf one more time. You're really okay with this, bonding with an enemy soldier? Former enemy, corrected. The war is over. Besides, I judge beings by their actions, not their species. Your actions on VII speak to your character. All right then, walked over to the wolf and knelt down so they were at eye level. What do I need to say? Al handed him a small card with phonetic writing. Just read these words while maintaining contact with his forehead. Placed his hand on the wolf's massive head, surprised by how warm the fur felt. I accept the bond of companionship. I will guard you as you will guard mine. We face the future together. The moment he finished speaking, felt a strange, tingling sensation run up his arm. The wolf's blue eyes seemed to glow brighter for a moment, and then suddenly could feel something new in the back of his mind. It wasn't quite thoughts, more like an awareness of another presence. Hello, bonded one, a voice said directly into his mind. His mouth hadn't moved but could clearly hear him. Whoa, said out loud, that's going to take some getting used to. Indeed, you have a surprisingly organized mind for a human. Most of your species think in chaotic patterns. Should I be insulted by that? Not particularly. It is simply an observation. Ambassador Al gathered up the documents. The bond is complete, is now legally your responsibility, Sergeant. I trust you will treat him well. I'll do my best, said, still trying to process the strange new sensation in his mind. After the diplomat left, and stared at each other in the sudden quiet of the apartment. So, said finally, I guess you live here now. Your dwelling is quite small. Where am I supposed to sleep? Looked around his tiny apartment. The wolf was right, there wasn't much space for a creature his size. I guess we'll figure something out. Are you hungry? I don't know what shadow wolves eat. I am capable of consuming most organic matter, though I prefer fresh meat when available. I am not picky about the source. Okay, that's not ominous at all, muttered. I've got some protein rations in the fridge. Will that work for now? It will suffice. As prepared food for his unexpected companion, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just become infinitely more complicated. He was a simple soldier who'd signed up to protect human colonies. Now he was responsible for an alien creature that used to belong to his enemy's leader. You are troubled, observed, settling on the small living room floor. Yeah, you could say that. This whole situation is pretty overwhelming. The Emperor anticipated you would feel uncertain. He left additional instructions for me to share once the bond was complete. Paused in opening the food containers. What kind of instructions? He believed that humans and could learn from each other, despite the recent conflict. He hoped that our partnership might serve as an example of cooperation between our species. Great, no pressure there, said sarcastically. That was sarcasm again, was it not? Despite everything, found himself chuckling. Yeah, that was sarcasm too, you'll pick it up quick enough. I am beginning to understand why the Emperor found human communication patterns so intriguing. You say one thing but mean another, yet somehow you still manage to communicate effectively. It's one of our many talents, said, setting down a bowl of rehydrated protein. Along with starting wars and making everything more complicated than it needs to be. Approached the bowl and sniffed it carefully before taking a small bite. Edible, though bland, I may need to teach you about proper nutrition. Looking forward to it, said dryly. As the day wore on, found himself adjusting to the strange new presence in his mind. Didn't constantly project thoughts, but could sense his emotions and general mental state. The wolf seemed cautiously optimistic about their arrangement, though there was an underlying sadness that suspected came from missing his previous bonded companion. You are correct, said, apparently picking up on thoughts. The Emperor and I were together for many years. His loss is still fresh. I'm sorry for that, said sincerely. I know what it's like to lose someone important. You have lost comrades in battle. It wasn't a question. Realized that the mental link worked both ways, could sense his emotions too. Yeah, too many good soldiers died in that war. The Emperor felt the same about his people. He regretted the conflict, but believed it was necessary to protect interests. And I believed it was necessary to protect human colonies. Funny how that works out. Perhaps that is why he chose you. You understand the cost of war without letting it consume you with hatred. Thought about that as he prepared for bed. His small apartment only had one bedroom, which meant would have to sleep in the living room. The wolf didn't seem bothered by the arrangement. I spent many nights sleeping on the floor of the Emperor's chambers. Your furniture is more comfortable than palace marble. That's good to know, said, setting out a blanket for the wolf. Tomorrow I'll need to figure out how to explain you to my commanding officer. This is going to be interesting. You anticipate difficulties. Let's just say that having an alien companion isn't exactly standard procedure in the human military. The military had similar issues when the Emperor first brought me to official functions. Many officers questioned the wisdom of trusting an animal with state secrets. How did that work out? I proved my intelligence and loyalty through action. Perhaps you will need to do the same for me with your people. Settled into bed, still getting used to the constant low-level awareness of another mind connected to his. We'll face whatever comes together. That's what partners do, right? Indeed, though I should warn you, tomorrow may bring unexpected challenges. The Emperor left very specific instructions about my purpose here. What kind of purpose? Asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. He believed that our bond could help prevent future conflicts between our species. But first, we must prove that such cooperation is possible. Stared at the ceiling of his small apartment. When he'd woken up this morning, his biggest concern had been whether to or look for civilian work. Now he was apparently part of some grand diplomatic experiment, bonded to an alien wolf who used to serve the enemy emperor. Rest now, advised. Tomorrow we begin a journey that neither of us can predict. As drifted off to sleep, He couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet post-war life was about to become anything but quiet. The presence of in his mind was strangely comforting, though. For the first time since leaving the military hospital, he didn't feel completely alone. Outside his window, Luna City continued its endless cycle of ships and lights, carrying people and cargo between the stars. Had no idea that within days, he and his new companion would be joining that flow of traffic, heading toward adventures that would test everything they thought they knew about honor, friendship, and the possibility of peace between former enemies. But for now he slept, and in his dreams he could swear he heard the distant howl of wolves among the stars, woke to the sound of his door chime and the distinct feeling that something was wrong. Through his bond with, he could sense the wolf's alertness and concern. It was still early morning by Luna Colony's artificial day cycle. Three humans approach, his voice said directly into his mind. They carry weapons and move with military precision. Rolled out of bed and grabbed his clothes. Military police. Unknown, they attempt to mask their scents, but I can detect traces of recent combat. These are not simple peace officers. The door chime sounded again, more insistently this time. Pulled on his uniform shirt and checked his sidearm before walking to the door. Had positioned himself near the wall where he wouldn't be immediately visible to whoever was outside. "Sergeant," a voice called from the hallway. "This is Colonel Harrison from Military Intelligence. We need to speak with you immediately." Opened the door to find three officers in crisp uniforms. The colonel was a stern-looking woman with graying hair and the kind of eyes that missed nothing. Her two companions were younger but carried themselves like special forces. "Colonel," said, snapping to attention, "how can I help you?" "We need to discuss your recent acquisition," Harrison said, stepping into the apartment without invitation. Her eyes immediately found who had moved into plain sight. "And we need to do it now." The wolf remained perfectly still but could feel his readiness through their bond. They are afraid, observed. Fear makes humans unpredictable. "Sir, if this is about my inheritance from the Emperor, I've already cleared it through the proper diplomatic channels," said carefully. Colonel Harrison smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Sergeant, you've been out of active duty for months. You may not be aware of recent developments. 3 days ago, a strike team attacked a research facility on Titan. They stole classified data about our new shield technology." Felt his stomach drop. "With respect, ma'am, what does that have to do with me?" "Intelligence suggests the attack was coordinated using information from a source with access to both human and military communications," one of Harrison's companions said. "The timing of your alien acquisition seems rather convenient." "They suspect me of being a spy," said into his mind. "How shall we handle this?" "Be honest but careful," sub-vocalized, a technique he was learning to communicate with his bonded companion. "Colonel, I understand your concerns, but has been with me for less than 24 hours, said aloud. "Any intelligence gathering would have had to happen long before yesterday." "Shadow wolves are known for their mental abilities," the second officer said. "For all we know, it could have been feeding information to agents for months while pretending to be a simple inheritance." Finally spoke, his deep voice filling the small apartment. "Your accusations are both insulting and illogical." The three officers tensed, hands moving toward their weapons. Stepped slightly forward, positioning himself between them and the wolf. "It's okay," said quickly. "He's not hostile." "That creature could tear all of us apart in seconds," Colonel Harrison said. "And now it has a direct mental link to one of our soldiers." "I could indeed kill them all, observed privately too. But that would hardly improve our situation." "Colonel, with respect, you're making a lot of assumptions," said. "Was the Emperor's personal companion. If he was gathering intelligence for some conspiracy, why would they eliminate his primary source by putting him in my custody?" Harrison considered this for a moment. Perhaps because they already have what they need, or perhaps this is part of a longer game. "There is a simple way to resolve this matter," said, standing to his full imposing height. "Submit me to your telepathic scanning protocols. Examine my recent memories. You will find no evidence of deception." The three officers exchanged glances. Was surprised. He hadn't known that human military had telepathic scanning capabilities. "We don't typically use those methods on allied beings," Colonel Harrison said carefully. "I am not asking for special consideration," replied. I am offering to prove my innocence and my bonded companion's loyalty through your own methods. Surely that is preferable to baseless accusations. Felt a surge of respect for the wolf through their bond. Was essentially volunteering for what amounted to mental interrogation to protect's reputation. The nearest telepathic scanner is at Luna Command, one of the officers said. It would take several hours to arrange. Then arrange it, said firmly. If this is what it takes to clear our names, we'll do it. Colonel Harrison studied both of them for a long moment. Very well, but until the scans are complete, you're both confined to base, and the creature doesn't leave your side. Understood, ma'am. 2 hours later, found himself in a sterile white room deep within Luna Command's security section. Lay on a specially designed table while technicians attached various sensors to his head. The telepathic scanner looked like something from a medical drama, all flashing lights and incomprehensible displays. This may cause some discomfort, the lead technician warned. Shadow wolf neural patterns are different from human ones. I have endured worse, said Tu, though I admit the sensation is unpleasant. The scanning process took nearly an hour. During that time, watched the displays show swirling patterns of colors and symbols that meant nothing to him. Colonel Harrison and her team observed from behind reinforced glass. Interesting, the lead technician said finally. The subject's recent memories show no evidence of covert communication or intelligence gathering. His thoughts are remarkably focused on adapting to his new bonding situation. What about deeper memories? Harrison asked through the intercom. Those are more complex to interpret, but I'm seeing evidence of genuine grief over his previous companion's death, and what appears to be curiosity about human culture. Nothing that suggests hostile intent. Felt relief flood through him. It is over, asked wearily. Not quite, murmured. The technician continued his report. However, I am detecting some unusual neural patterns. The subject has significantly enhanced memory capabilities and what appears to be latent precognitive abilities. Harrison's voice sharpened with interest. Precognitive. Limited future sight, essentially. Nothing dramatic. Perhaps the ability to predict outcomes a few minutes in advance based on environmental cues and probability analysis. It's actually quite common in shadow wolves, according to our files. I had not planned to reveal that particular ability so soon, observed privately. Why didn't you mention this? Asked him. Because humans tend to react poorly to beings who can anticipate their actions. I thought it best to let you become accustomed to my presence first. Colonel Harrison emerged from the observation room. This changes things, Sergeant. If your companion has predictive abilities, he could be extremely valuable to military operations. Felt sudden wariness through their bond. Ma'am. I'm recommending both of you for immediate reassignment to special operations. Your unique partnership could provide significant advantages in the field. Colonel, I'm still on medical leave, protested. And just lost his previous companion. We're both still adjusting to the bonding process. The war may be officially over, Sergeant, but tensions remain high. We need every advantage we can get. Harrison's expression softened slightly. Besides, keeping you both active will help deflect any remaining suspicion about your loyalty. Through their bond, could sense thoughts on the matter. The wolf was willing to serve if it meant protecting his reputation, but he was also concerned about being used as a tool rather than treated as a partner. What kind of operations are we talking about? Asked. Initially, reconnaissance and intelligence gathering in disputed territories. Your companion's abilities would help our teams avoid potential threats and ambushes. The colonel is not being entirely truthful, observed. Her scent indicates deception when she speaks of reconnaissance missions. Decided to press the issue, and if we refuse... Harrison's smile became brittle. Sergeant, you've been cleared of any wrongdoing, but questions will always remain. Serving in Spec Ops would demonstrate your continued loyalty to humanity. Refusing might raise new suspicions. More emotional manipulation, noted. Your species seems particularly fond of this tactic. We'll need time to consider this, said. You have until tomorrow morning to decide, Harrison replied. Report to my office at 800 with your answer. After they returned to his apartment, both companions sat in silence for a while. Could feel's mental exhaustion from the scanning process, but also his thoughtful consideration of their situation. "You are troubled by the Colonel's proposal," the wolf observed. "I didn't survive 3 years of war just to get dragged into more fighting," said. "I was looking forward to a peaceful life." "Peace is rarely given freely. Sometimes it must be earned through continued service." "Is that what you think we should do? Join Spec Ops?" Padded over to the window and gazed out at Luna City. "I think we have little choice if we wish to remain together. The Colonel's suspicions may be satisfied for now, but others will question our partnership. Proving our value to your military may be the best way to ensure our continued freedom." Joined him at the window. "The Emperor really picked a complicated situation for us, didn't he?" The Emperor was always fond of complex strategies. He believed that the greatest rewards came from the most challenging paths. "What was he like?" asked. "The Emperor, I mean. All I knew about him came from military briefings." Was quiet for a moment and could sense a wave of sadness through their bond. "He was intelligent and proud, sometimes to a fault. He genuinely believed he was protecting his people, even when his methods were harsh. But he was also capable of great compassion for those he considered worthy of respect. Like deciding to give you to a human soldier. Like recognizing honor in his enemies and hopping to bridge the gap between our peoples. He often said that war was the failure of imagination, the inability to see former enemies as potential allies." Thought about that as evening approached. They ordered dinner from a local restaurant and was amused to watch reaction to human cuisine. The wolf seemed particularly puzzled by dessert. "You consume sugar for pleasure rather than nutrition?" asked, watching eat ice cream. "Pretty much, yeah. It's called enjoying life." An interesting concept. Focus primarily on efficiency and purpose in their consumption habits. "Well, you're going to learn a lot about human inefficiency if you stick around. I am beginning to understand why the Emperor found your species so fascinating. You waste enormous amounts of energy on apparently pointless activities, yet somehow you remain effective as a civilization." Laughed. "We're full of contradictions. Get used to it." As night fell over Luna City, made his decision. He could sense that had reached the same conclusion through their shared bond. "Tomorrow morning, we tell Colonel Harrison that we'll join Spec Ops," said. "Agreed, though I suspect our first mission will be far more dangerous than simple reconnaissance." "What makes you say that?" His blue eyes seemed to glow in the dim light of the apartment. "My precognitive abilities show probability patterns suggesting significant conflict in our near future. The Colonel's deception about the nature of our assignments was likely because she knows we will face combat situations soon." "Great," said sarcastically. "Just what I wanted to hear." "There is something else," continued. "The attack on Titan that the Colonel mentioned, I sense connections to larger patterns. This may not have been a simple theft of technology." "What kind of connections?" "I cannot be certain without more information, but the probability patterns suggest a coordinated effort involving multiple species. The theft may have been preparation for something much larger." Felt a chill run down his spine. "You think there's going to be another war?" "I think there are forces working to ensure that the peace between our peoples does not last. Our partnership may be more important than even the Emperor realized." As prepared for bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change dramatically again. The comfortable routine of recovery and adjustment was about to be replaced by something far more challenging. "Do not worry about what may come," advised, settling onto his blanket in the living room. "We will face whatever challenges arise together. That is the strength of the bonding. Neither of us faces the future alone." "Thanks, partner," said softly. "Get some rest. Tomorrow starts our new career." Indeed, though I suspect our definition of career will soon be tested in ways neither of us can imagine. Drifted off to sleep with the comforting presence of his bonded companion in his mind. Through their link, he could sense determination and loyalty, but also the wolf's underlying sadness at being thrust into another conflict so soon after losing his previous partner. Outside, Luna City continued its endless activity, ships carrying people and cargo between the worlds. But in the depths of space, other ships moved with darker purposes, and plans set in motion by the Emperor's death were beginning to unfold. The next morning would bring new challenges and revelations that would test everything thought he knew about loyalty, duty, and the price of peace. But for now, human and alien companions slept peacefully, their dreams filled with wolves running free among the stars. Stood at attention in Colonel Harrison's office, beside him in a formal sitting position. The wolf's massive presence seemed to fill the room, but he remained perfectly still as the colonel reviewed their files on her desk display. "I'm pleased you've decided to accept assignment to Special Operations," Harrison said without looking up. "Your first mission briefing begins in 1 hour." "Ma'am, we assumed there would be some training period first," said. "Integration protocols, team-building exercises, that sort of thing." Harrison finally looked up and didn't like what he saw in her expression. "Sergeant, events are moving faster than we anticipated. The attack on Titan was just the beginning. We've received intelligence that suggests a larger conspiracy involving multiple alien species." She speaks truth now, observed privately. Her scent carries urgency and fear. "What kind of conspiracy?" asked. "The kind that could reignite the war between humanity and the Empire," Harrison replied grimly, "along with dragging several other species into the conflict." She activated a holographic display showing star charts with various marked systems. 3 days ago, military installations in the system were attacked by unknown forces. Yesterday, a human research station in the sector went silent. This morning, we lost contact with a diplomatic mission en route to Earth. Studied the display, noting the pattern of attacks. Someone's trying to make each species think the others are responsible. Exactly, and it's working. Military commanders are already calling for retaliation against human targets. Some of our own officers are demanding preemptive strikes. Harrison leaned back in her chair. "We need to identify the real perpetrators before this situation spirals out of control." "The probability patterns I sensed were correct," said Tu. "This conflict was planned long before we bonded." "What's our role in this?" asked aloud. "Your unique partnership gives us an advantage," Harrison explained. "Connection to the former emperor provides credibility with forces, while your human perspective allows for diplomatic contact with our own people. We need you to investigate these attacks and find evidence of the real culprits." "And if we refuse?" Harrison's expression hardened. "Then billions of beings across multiple species may die in a war that could have been prevented." An hour later, found himself in a briefing room with 5 other Special Operations soldiers. The team leader was Captain Sarah Reeves, a veteran of the war with cybernetic implants that enhanced her reflexes. The others were specialists in various fields: communications, demolitions, medical support, and intelligence analysis. "All right, people, listen up," Captain Reeves began, activating the room's holographic display. "Our mission is to investigate the attack on Research Station Alpha 7 in the system. Initial reports suggest the attackers used both human and weapons technology." The display showed images of a destroyed space station, its modules scattered across several thousand kilometers of space. "Survivors?" asked Torres, the team's medic. 3 currently in medical custody at base. They reported seeing attackers in both human military gear and combat armor working together. "Impossible," said privately too. "Human and military equipment is incompatible. Someone has gone to great effort to create this deception." "Sir, my companion points out that human and gear isn't compatible," said. "If someone's using both, they've had to modify the equipment specifically for this operation." Captain Reeves nodded approvingly. "Good point. That suggests significant resources and planning. Doctor, what's your analysis?" The intelligence specialist, a small Asian woman with intense eyes, consulted her tablet. "Cross-species equipment modification requires advanced knowledge of both technologies. There are maybe a dozen organizations in known space with that capability. Or one organization with agents in multiple species," added, speaking aloud for the first time. The team members tensed slightly at hearing the wolf's voice, but Captain Reeves maintained her composure. "Explain." "If someone wanted to start a war between humans, and they would need assets within both militaries," continued. "Stolen equipment alone would not be sufficient. They would need operational knowledge, access codes, and tactical information." Felt proud of his companion's analytical abilities. The wolf was demonstrating exactly why the Emperor had valued him as an advisor. "That's a disturbing possibility," Reeves said. "It would mean we're dealing with a long-term infiltration operation." The briefing continued for another hour, covering mission objectives, equipment, and contingency plans. Was assigned as the team's liaison specialist, with serving as an intelligence analyst and early warning system. "One more thing," Captain Reeves said as the meeting concluded. "This mission is classified at the highest levels. If you're captured, you're on your own. Officially, this team doesn't exist." 2 hours later, found himself aboard a stealth corvette heading toward the system. The ship was designed for covert operations, with advanced shielding that made it nearly invisible to most sensors. The crew quarters were cramped, but he'd experienced worse during the war. Had some difficulty fitting into the ship's narrow corridors, but he adapted quickly. The Wolf seemed fascinated by human spacecraft design. "Your species builds for efficiency rather than comfort," he observed as they settled into their shared quarters. "When you might get shot at, comfort becomes a luxury," replied. The Emperor's ships were built for grandeur as much as function. Perhaps that was a weakness. During the 3-day journey got to know his new teammates better. Captain Reeves was all business, but she showed genuine interest in abilities. Tors, the medic, was curious about Shadow Wolf physiology. Johnson, the demolitions expert, seemed wary of having an alien on the team but kept his opinions to himself. Doctor spent hours discussing intelligence analysis with, and was impressed by how quickly the Wolf adapted to human analytical methods. "Your teammate thinks systematically," observed after one of their sessions. "She would have made an excellent advisor to the Emperor." "She might take that as a compliment," said. It was intended as one. On the second day of the journey, his precognitive abilities proved their value. He suddenly became agitated while the team was reviewing mission plans. "Danger approaches," he warned. "Multiple ships moving to intercept our course." Immediately alerted Captain Reeves, who checked with the bridge. Within minutes, the ship's sensors confirmed 3 unidentified vessels on an intercept course. "How did you know?" Reeves asked. "I sense probability patterns that suggest hostile intent," the Wolf explained. "These ships have been waiting for us." The captain's expression grew grim. "That suggests our mission has been compromised." The next few hours were tense as the stealth corvette played a game of cat and mouse with the pursuing vessels. The ship's captain used every trick in the book: gravitational slingshots around asteroids, hiding in the sensor shadow of a gas giant, even dumping heat sinks to mask their thermal signature. "The pursuers are persistent but not particularly skilled," observed. "They follow predictable search patterns." "Can you predict their movements?" Captain Reeves asked. "To some degree. They will check the asteroid belt next, then move to scan the outer planets." The information proved accurate, allowing their ship to stay one step ahead of the searchers. Eventually, the pursuing vessels gave up and departed the system. "Someone definitely knew we were coming," Doctor said during the post-incident debriefing. "The question is how." "And who?" added privately too. "I sense deception patterns among our own people." "You think someone on the team is compromised?" asked silently. "Not necessarily compromised, but someone is not being entirely truthful about their knowledge of this mission." When they finally reached the system, the team transferred to a smaller shuttle for the final approach to research Station Alpha 7's remains. The debris field was even more extensive than the briefing images had suggested. "Weapons analysis shows a combination of plasma cannons and kinetic accelerators," reported the communications specialist as he scanned the wreckage. "Consistent with both human and military technology." "But notice the blast patterns," said too. "The damage is too uniform. Real combat creates more chaotic destruction." Shared this observation with the team. "Thinks the attack patterns look artificial, like someone was trying to create specific evidence rather than simply destroying the station." Captain Reeves studied the sensor readings more carefully. He might be right. The damage distribution is unusually systematic for a combat scenario. They spent hours examining the wreckage and interviewing the 3 survivors via subspace communication. The witnesses' stories were consistent but oddly similar, as if they'd been coached. They speak truth as they remember it, determined after listening to the interviews. But their memories may have been altered. "Memory alteration?" Doctor asked. "That would require sophisticated technology." "Or telepathic manipulation," added. "Several species possess such abilities." As the investigation continued, a pattern began to emerge. The attackers had been careful to leave just enough evidence to implicate both humans but not so much as to make the frame job obvious. It was a masterful piece of manipulation. Whoever's behind this knows both our species very well, Captain Reeves concluded. They understand exactly how we'd react to this kind of provocation. There is something else, said privately too. I sense familiar thought patterns among the debris. Someone involved in this attack has had contact with shadow wolves before. The Emperor asked. Perhaps, or someone who worked closely with him. The mental signature is faint but distinctive. That evening, as the team prepared to move on to their next investigation site, found himself alone within the shuttle's small cargo bay. The wolf had been unusually quiet during dinner. Something's bothering you, observed. I am beginning to suspect that the Emperor's death was not as simple as it appeared, admitted. These attacks, the manipulation, the sophisticated knowledge of both human and psychology, it suggests someone with intimate knowledge of the Emperor's plans and methods. You think someone close to him was involved in the conspiracy? I think someone close to him may have orchestrated his death to prevent him from achieving the peace he desired. Felt a chill run through him. That would mean we are not investigating random attacks by unknown conspirators. We may be hunting someone who was once trusted by the Emperor himself, someone who knew about his plans to use our bonding as a bridge between species. And they're trying to prevent that from happening by starting another war. Precisely, which means that our mission has become far more dangerous than Colonel Harrison indicated. The next morning brought news that confirmed their worst fears. Another research facility had been attacked, this time in human space. The evidence again pointed to involvement, and military commanders on both sides were calling for immediate retaliation. We're running out of time, Captain Reeves said during the morning briefing. If we can't find proof of the real perpetrators soon, this is going to spiral into full-scale war. The probability patterns are shifting rapidly, observed. Events are accelerating beyond normal parameters. Someone is forcing the timeline. How long do we have? Asked. Perhaps days, no more than a week before the situation becomes irreversible. As their ship changed course for the next investigation site, couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing into someone else's game. The attacks were too convenient, the evidence too perfectly balanced between the two species. You are correct, confirmed. We are being manipulated, but by whom remains unclear. Any ideas? One, but it is so terrible that I hope I am wrong. Tell me. Was quiet for a long moment before responding. What if the Emperor's own sons orchestrated his death and these attacks? They never approved of his peace initiatives. They would have access to all his plans, knowledge of shadow wolf abilities, and the resources to carry out such a complex operation. Felt sick to his stomach. They'd start a war just to prevent peace. Some beings value power more than peace, and with the Emperor dead and war renewed, they would have opportunities to seize control of the Empire. We need proof. Yes, but gathering it may require us to return to space. Are you prepared for that possibility? Looked out at the stars rushing past the shuttle's viewport. Somewhere out there, forces were working to destroy everything the Emperor had hoped to achieve through their partnership. The thought made him angry. Let them come, he said quietly. We'll stop whoever's behind this, no matter who they are. Good, because I suspect our next mission will take us directly into the heart of enemy territory. And this time, the enemy may be someone we never expected. As the shuttle continued toward its destination, both human and alien companion prepared for a confrontation that would test everything they'd learned about trust, loyalty, and the price of preventing war. Behind them, the debris of Research Station Alpha 7 continued to drift through space, silent testimony to the cost of hatred and the lengths some would go to preserve it. The game was becoming clear, but the final moves had yet to be played. And in the vast darkness between the stars, other ships moved with deadly purpose, carrying weapons and warriors who had no idea they were pawns in a larger conspiracy that threatened the future of multiple species. The Emperor's final gamble was about to be tested in ways he never could have imagined.